some of your players were just talking that you went in front of a athletics all-staff meeting and said you were going to win the national championship before this season. You've said it in media interviews the last couple of weeks. Obviously, you always want to have confidence in your team, but could you just tell this was a special group all the way along?
Absolutely. There was countless hours this summer. Like I said earlier, I felt like I was more of a general manager than anything else because we were always knocking on the door of winning a national championship, but we were a few teammates short. We had a short bench. So we had to be creative with our money and understand that the transfer portal was going to blow up and be patient at the same time. And it was very strategic. And I think we did a really good job of getting the right kids in for our culture, but also adding that depth that we needed to actually go over the top and win the whole thing. So I felt, of course, you never really know, right? I mean, I look like a genius now, but you never really know. But I called them out in that all-staff meeting because I felt like if this was going to be the year, this was going to be the year that they could do it.
Yeah. And this was a team, I think each of your last 5 victories was by 1 goal. You had some overtime games in there and things like that, but it just seemed like there was always a belief in this group that they were going to be able to get it done.
Yeah, you know what? It's tough to always have to come back. It's very tiring. It's mentally tiring, but they were resilient and they kept doing it. Today we scored first, and I was just like, hey, don't get comfortable because we've been on the other side of that coin, And it was tough because I'm sure you guys watched the game. I felt like we were pretty dominant. The 39 shots to 19. We controlled the neutral zone really well on our back check and our offensive push. But you score, then they score, and then you score, then they score, and it was quick. And that could have been demoralizing just because you feel like you got the lead and then you don't. And then they found a way to push. And when there was that timeout in the last 2 minutes, I just challenged them, like, do you want to be a national champion? You're going to have to sell out. And I remember Wayne Gretzky, I said this in a press conference earlier today about when they interviewed him after he won his first Stanley Cup, they thought that there's going to be champagne, booze, and everything in the locker room. He was in the training room icing, and that's what it takes, and that's what they did. They were brilliant when they needed to be.
You said after the game that it was hard to do an interview right after a game because has it started to set in at all yet?
Not really. I mean, I was just talking with a gentleman over there. It's just one of those things where I felt personally a little bit like a weight was on me that I was not trying to put on them because I was getting so many emails and texts from family members here at Ohio State within our athletic department, but then from the whole state. You just knew like a whole state was behind you, rooting for you. When I was at Minnesota, like there's multiple teams in Minnesota, so not everybody loves Minnesota, but here at Ohio State, it's like the whole state's behind you, rooting for you. And it was really great to see some of the coverage on Twitter, like bars watching it and cheering for us. And I mean, I think it really put us on the map, like hockey on the map in Ohio. And that's a big mission for us.
And just building off of that, we talked with your players just a minute ago, and they were talking about the way you run the program, the culture that you instill. Just as you mentioned, the whole state rallying behind you. Just what sort of feeling does that give you? What sort of feeling do you see in the players when the whole state literally is cheering for you?
Well, here's the thing: you can be a great leader, but they need to follow you, right? And they did, and they wanted to. That's just the Ohio State, though. Like, we demand excellence within our athletic department. And, I got to give credit to Minnesota and Hockey Canada, where I was pretty much groomed. And that's what I knew. And I wanted to bring that in. This team was broken when I took it over, okay, and that's why they probably hired me. But at the same time, they wanted to win, they just didn't know how. So they always had it within them. When we recruit like blue-collar kids, too. Like, we recruit the kids that are going to do whatever they got to do to win and fight for one another and be grateful for everything that they had. So it was a really easy group to coach.
So how do you take those blue-collar kids and then tell them, hey, this is how we're going to do the program, this is how we should do it, and it's going to lead to a national championship? How have you done that?
Yeah, well, it just takes a little bit of time over the years. The first year I just observed and watched. I didn't want to interrupt too much of their culture and who they were and what they had, but things needed to change. And then it was really that my second year, those captains, Jules Iafallo and Lauren Spring, that really set that tone. And we had to change things. Like, I came in, I just blew it up, and I needed their support because they're the bridge between the locker room and the coaches. And they were itching to win. And they, like I said, they just didn't know how to at the time. But anyways, they started that path and that tone, so I didn't have to police the locker room anymore. They just controlled it. So when we had all these new kids in, I had great leadership that said, hey, this is just how it is. Like, get on board or get out of the way kind of mentality. And it was great of them. So, and then, we just hold them accountable on the ice. We're really hard. We train really hard. But it's like anything else. You don't know any different, right? So this is just what it is.
Hi, Coach. I was wondering if you could talk about Levis this weekend. Obviously a huge weekend for her. Lots of goals, MVP.
I mean, Levis has been buzzing all year. I mean, her mental maturity, I think, has really helped her physically. Her speed, her understanding of the game. I mean, Peyton Levis was my first recruit, so that's a special moment for me to see her, because both Liz Shepers and Peyton Levis were seniors that weren't recruited, and then all of a sudden we bring them in and they bought into the program and are now some of the best players in the country. And that's how we recruit, like we were saying earlier, blue collar kids that that we can elevate their game. I trust in my staff that we'll do that, but they have to have that within, because that's the hard part to coach. We'll bring it out in them, but they already have to have it. And if you met their parents, it makes sense.
As a coach, are you immediately now thinking about what's next, or do you take a little time to decompress?
Well, I'm not going to lie. A part of me is going to probably go look at the transfer portal pretty quickly, just because a lot of kids are probably going to enter now that the season's over. So in a way, you're always feeling like you're working, but at the same time, I want to enjoy time with my husband, time with my kids, because my husband's been like number 29 on the list, after all the players and my kids. So he's accepted that. But yeah, I've been told I need a vacation from everybody. So maybe I should try that.